curiosity is the lust of the mind. Hell is truth seen too late. Knowledge is power. For such is the nature of man, that howsoever they may acknowledge many others to be more witty, or more eloquent, or more learned, yet they will hardly believe there be many so wise as themselves, for they see their own wit at hand, and other men's at a distance. The condition of man is a condition of war of everyone against everyone. Whatsoever therefore is consequent to a time of war, where every man is enemy to every man, the same consequent to the time wherein men live without other security than what their own strength and their own invention shall furnish them withal. In such condition there is no place for industry, no knowledge of the face of the earth, no account of time, no arts, no letters, no society, and which is worst of all, continual fear, and danger of violent death, and the life of man, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Leisure is the mother of philosophy. Life is nasty, brutish, and short. The source of every crime is some defect of the understanding, or some error in reasoning, or some sudden force of the passions. Defect in the understanding is ignorance, in reasoning, erroneous opinion. Homo homini lupus. Force and fraud are in war the two cardinal virtues. Words are the counters of wise men, and the money of fools. No arts, no letters, no society, and which is worst of all, continual fear and danger of violent death, and the life of man solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. The first and fundamental law of nature, which is, to seek peace and follow it. Covenants, without the sword, are but words and of no strength to secure a man at all. For it can never be that war shall preserve life, and peace destroy it. For to accuse requires less eloquence, such is man's nature, than to excuse, and condemnation, than absolution, more resembles justice. A great leap in the dark. Now I am about to take my last voyage, a great leap in the dark. When all the world is overcharged with inhabitants, then the last remedy of all is war, which provideth for every man, by victory or death. God put me on this earth to accomplish a certain number of things. Right now I'm so far behind that I'll never die. It is one thing to desire, another to be in capacity fit for what we desire. If men are naturally in a state of war, why do they always carry arms, and why do they have keys to lock their doors? It's not the pace of life I mind. It's the sudden stop at the end. A man's conscience and his judgment are the same thing, and, as the judgment, so also the conscience may be erroneous. The universe, the whole mass of things that are, is corporeal, that is to say, body, and hath the dimensions of magnitude, length, breadth and depth. Every part of the universe is body, and that which is not body is no part of the universe, and because the universe is all, that which is no part of it is nothing, and consequently nowhere. He that is to govern a whole nation, must read in himself, not this, or that particular man, but mankind. The source of every crime is some defect of the understanding, or some error in reasoning, or some sudden force of the passions. What is the heart but a spring, and the nerves but so many strings, and the joints but so many wheels, giving motion to the whole body? To this war of every man against every man, this also inconsequent, that nothing can be unjust. The notions of right and wrong, justice and injustice have there no place. Where there is no common power, there is no law. Where no law, no injustice. Force and fraud are in war the cardinal virtues. Another doctrine repugnant to civil society is that whatsoever a man does against his conscience is sin, and it dependeth on the presumption of making himself judge of good and evil. For a man's conscience and his judgment are the same thing, and as the judgment, so also the conscience may be erroneous. I often observe the absurdity of dreams, but never dream of the absurdity of my waking thoughts. Fear of things invisible is the natural seed of that which every one in himself calleth religion. True and false are attributes of speech, not of things, and where speech is not, there is neither truth nor falsehood. Fear of power invisible, feigned by the mind, or imagined from tales publicly allowed, is religion, not allowed superstition. It is many times with a fraudulent design that men stick their corrupt doctrine with the cloves of other men's wit. Give an inch, he'll take an ell. As if it were injustice to sell dearer than we buy, or to give more to a man than he merits. The value of all things contracted for, is measured by the appetite of the contractors, and therefore the just value, is that which they be contented to give. By consequence, or train of thoughts, I understand that succession of one thought to another which is called, to distinguish it from discourse in words, mental discourse. When a man thinketh on anything whatsoever, his next thought after is not altogether so casual as it seems to be. Not every thought to every thought succeeds indifferently. That wisdom is acquired, not by reading of books, but of men. Consequently whereunto, those persons, that for the most part can give no other proof of being wise, take great delight to show what they think they have read in men, by uncharitable censures of one another behind their backs. Look not at the greatness of the evil past, but the greatness of the good to follow. Desire, to know why, and how, curiosity, such as is in no living creature but man, so that man is distinguished, not only by his reason, but also by this singular passion from other animals, in whom the appetite of food, and other pleasures of sense, by predominance, take away the care of knowing causes, which is a lust of the mind, that by a perseverance of delight in the continual and indefatigable generation of knowledge, exceedeth the short vehemence of any carnal pleasure. Ignorance of natural causes disposeth a man to credulity, so as to believe many times impossibilities, for such know nothing to the contrary, but that they may be true, being unable to detect the impossibility. And credulity, because men love to be hearkened unto in company, disposeth them to lying, so that ignorance itself without malice, is able to make a man both to believe lies, and tell them, and sometimes also to invent them. Liberty, to define it, is nothing other than the absence of impediments to motion. Words are wise men's counters, they do but reckon by them, but they are the money of fools. War consisteth not in battle only, or the act of fighting, but in a tract of time, wherein the will to contend by battle is sufficiently known. In the very shadows of doubt a thread of reason, so to speak, begins, by whose guidance we shall escape to the clearest light. The skill of making, and maintaining commonwealths, consisteth in certain rules, as doth arithmetic and geometry, not, as tennis play, on practice only, which rules, neither poor men have the leisure, nor men that have had the leisure, have hitherto had the curiosity, or the method to find out. As a draft animal is yoked in a wagon, even so the spirit is yoked in this body. Nor can a man any more live, whose desires are at an end, than he, whose senses and imaginations are at a stand. And if this be madness in the multitude, it is the same in every particular man. For as in the midst of the sea, though a man perceive no sound of that part of the water next him, yet he is well assured that part contributes as much to the roaring of the sea as any other part of the same quantity, so also, though we perceive no great unquietness in one or two men, yet we may be well assured that their singular passions are parts of the seditious roaring of a troubled nation. From whence it happens, that they which trust to books, do as they that cast up many little sums into a greater, without considering whether those little sums were rightly cast up or not, and at last finding the error visible, and not mistrusting their first grounds, know not which way to clear themselves, but spend time in fluttering over their books, as birds that entering by the chimney, and finding themselves enclosed in a chamber, flutter at the false light of a glass window, for want of wit to consider which way they came in. The light of humane minds is perspicuous words, but by exact definitions first snuffed, and purged from ambiguity, reason is the pace, and, on the contrary, metaphors, and senseless ambiguous words are like ignes fatui, and reasoning upon them is wandering amongst innumerable absurdities.